Hey everyone, welcome back to the BentBox Comics YouTube channel. Sorry, this is going to be a bit of a somber video. I don't really have, it's a touchy subject, but I just want to I figured, okay, let's just get it out in the open. So, I have aphantasia. I know. Now, a lot of you might have no idea what I'm talking about, which is totally fine, and that is now my job to educate you. A lot of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about because recently the concept of aphantasia has blown up on the internet and become part of the zeitgeist. Everyone just understands what it is, which is kind of cool. But the interesting thing is I actually found out about it probably 5 years ago, before it kind of blew up online and became a cultural thing that people acknowledge now. So if you're not familiar with aphantasia, it is actually a rare, I don't know if they want to call it a mental disorder. I like that. I think that's kind of a funny thing to say, I have a mental disorder. You know, whatever you guys think of that, don't really care, to be honest. This is about me, obviously. But it just makes me chuckle that I might have a mental disorder. But aphantasia is basically you have no mind's eye. And by you, I mean me, and potentially some of you watching, because as rare as it is, the amount of people, once it became almost a phenomenon online where everyone recognized it, the amount of comments that were like, oh, I have that, and I'm like, this doesn't seem as rare as they're making it out to be. To be specific, no mind's eye is in you cannot visualize things in your head. Pictures specifically. Now, apparently there's a spectrum to aphantasia, which there's a spectrum to pretty much everything, apparently. But with aphantasia, if you close your eyes, here's the perfect test. Supposedly, this is how it was originally presented to me years and years ago, was something I saw online, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, is if you close your eyes, do it right now, please. Follow along. We'll do it together. If you close your eyes, I want you to picture an apple, a red apple with a nice little sheen to it. It's got backlighting, it's got front lighting. You can see the shadow, you can see the stem, you can see every little detail. There's a little leaf on the stem, so it's perfectly plucked apple, recently. Beautiful, gorgeous piece of fruit. Open your eyes. Did you see an apple with your eyes closed? Could you visualize the apple? If you're like me, the answer is no. If you're like normal people, the answer is yes. You could actually see an apple when you closed your eyes. So when I first found out about this, it kind of blew my mind. But at the same time, it completely made so much sense. Or at least explained a massive portion of my life. And the reason why it's semi-relevant to the BentBox Comics YouTube channel and comics in general is I think it's one of the main reasons why I'm attracted to not only reading, but creating comics. So a little background on me. When I was a kid, I did not like to read. I just flat out hated it. I did like comics. Once again, I grew up with my dad being in Marvel, or an inker in Marvel, and so I was familiar with comics. I had them in my house at all times. I've read a decent amount of them. We had a huge collection. I was very much into pop culture and stuff like cinema or movies. I'm a huge cinephile. So that all spoke to me very easily, or at least I connected with it very easily. Reading, I never got the bug. And of course, back in the day, before we were all learned, I was just the dumb kid. You know what I mean? You're just the kid who doesn't read, so you're obviously not as intellectual or smart. That was kind of a label that I was just presented with whenever, did you, how many books have you read in your life? Did you enjoy this book? What do you think of that book? And I just had nothing to say about it. And then, fast forward, many moons later, specifically about 5 years ago when I found out I had aphantasia, or at least I found out what aphantasia was, they mentioned that some of the issues with someone with aphantasia is a lack of interest in reading. That caused a huge light bulb to go off in my head, not literally because I couldn't see it. However, a metaphorical light bulb went off in my head where I understood, oh, this is why I wasn't interested in reading. Like, basically, they laid it out that, and it goes back to if anyone remembers that show, Reading Rainbow, or any type of show back then, there was a lot going on back in the 90s and 80s. So Reading Rainbow specifically, but there are so many things where it's like, hey, dive into a book and let your mind go on an adventure. What adventure? Stumbling around in a dark black cave for the entire book? That was the adventure that was going on in my head. Or conversations about movies versus books, where it's like, man, Harry Potter is such an awesome series, but if you read the book, it's just so much better to read the book than to watch the movies. And I read the first Harry Potter, and I remember thinking, oh, that was kind of interesting. But it's because I had this odd head knowledge of what happened in the book without being able to visualize or imagine any of it. So I never understood that argument of the book is better than the movie. I can understand that maybe, okay, sure, you have more time in the book to put more information, more narration, more details, more minute specifics. I get it, because you can't fit all that in a 2-hour movie, unless you're Martin Scorsese, in which case you do a 4-hour movie and you fit as much garbage as you need to. The Irishman. But, and other movies. So I understand that concept of like, okay, if you really want the lore behind this story, if you really want the deep, deep stuff, read the book. I understand that, but from an experience point of view, never clicked. Not to mention, I would rather knock out a full, complete story or experience in 2 hours to 2.5 hours than a week worth of reading. Just putting that out there. I know I sound stupid, but once again, the reason is I do not experience reading the same as Gen Pop. So I don't know if anyone understands Gen Pop, this general population. It's a prison term. I've never been to prison, so I just know it from movies. So that all leads me to, I think, why I'm so interested and so infatuated with making and reading comics. Obviously, comics are a more visual medium in comparison to a standard novel or a book, while still giving you a story, and it can be just as in-depth as a standard novel or book. You get the same argument when it comes to like a comic book versus a comic book movie. Like, oh man, they didn't get that detail right, or they didn't get this right, or yada yada yada. So it's a very similar argument, and I totally get it. But there's something about it to where I can now mentally connect with this story and visualize what the author was intending. Now, I know that there is like an aspect to a novel to where it's up for interpretation, and that's the beautiful thing, is your mind is the thing interpreting it. So it's cool that almost everyone has a semi-different experience. So that's just something I do appreciate about written word. However, it's nothing I can experience. So it's just a weird area where that's cool, but I'm going to be over here reading comics because now I can see the character, I can see the environment, I can see yada yada yada. Instead of in a novel, he says, "Oh, the red apple's on the desk." I don't know. It's weird. So let me take 2 seconds to kind of break that down. The way I picture it, and apparently once again there is a spectrum as seen here. So apparently I'm on the far end of the spectrum to where when I close my eyes, I can see nothing. It is pitch black void. When I try and visualize things, so like if you said visualize the apple, if I did the same test you did, I would close my eyes and I would picture, and that doesn't even apply technically. I would consider or think about the descriptors of an apple: round, red, fruit, stem, leaf. But I would be thinking of the words and not the images that the words would conjure up if you didn't have aphantasia. It's kind of interesting, but it's just black, just pure blackness. I'm alone in my thoughts, which is a scary place to be. And this translates also to making comics, which is something I'm very passionate about and I extremely enjoy. And as far as I can tell, can't stop, won't stop kind of deal, because I'm just having a lot of fun with it. But I think there's an aspect to making comics to where when I have those visual descriptors in my head, specifically because I'm acting as a writer, and I'm more of a creative person, so I do have like stories in my mind and tales I want to weave and characters and situations and everything like that. and dialogue, which I'm a huge fan of, like dialogue. That's why I'm really closely, I'm just in love with specific movies that nail dialogue. There's just something like really human about that when done right, you just know it. Like, oh, this is how a conversation 100% would go in real life, which I'm just a sucker for. So I'm a huge fan of that kind of stuff. And as a writer, when I write specifically, like let's say Artificial, which was the first book I ever wrote, when I'm writing the descriptors on the page, and maybe I'll show a little bit here, they're very basic, but it's because I don't really have the mental capacity to visualize what I want, which is a weird place to be in, because as a writer, you need to describe the exact scene for your artist, or at least as well as possible to make sure that the artist has the easiest job in front of them. Now, this allows me, by being a little more vague and a little less descriptive, it allows me to not necessarily have an expectation of what the panel should look like. I know what the vibe should look like. I know what the A to B kind of flow of a single page would look like. So there's those aspects to it that I have a plan for that, but that's all in the writing. Nothing's being visualized yet in my head. So every time I get a page back from, let's say, Gabriel with Artificial, I am extremely excited and surprised. And that's mainly because I didn't have a mental picture of what this was going to look like. I had a very basic understanding of descriptors, as in Vincent van Gogh running his hand across sunflowers on the left and holding a gun in his right hand as he walks through a sunflower field. And the interesting thing about that is that was actually a page that I specifically was writing to. So I knew the impact of that page and what it should look like. However, I had no idea what it would look like. This is going terribly. I have no idea how to describe this. It's just weird. But Gabriel nailed it. This is exactly what I was planning and expecting, but without actually knowing what it would look like. So that's been the huge joy of making comics so far, is we can make these worlds wingless. We can make Worlds Forgotten, some of these ones that John's made, True Believer with Jeff Morris, some of the newer ones that we've brought on, like Ash by Dan Loeb. These allow you to enter a world and fully visualize it as the author saw fit, which is really cool. Now, it does remove a little bit of like personal thumbprint or imprint on the story, where you are kind of imagining your own version of, say, what Harry Potter would look like, or Snape, or yada yada yada, or what the magic would even look like. There's a little bit of that gets removed from you as the reader. But for me, a mentally ill person apparently, and for potentially a lot of you, it's just an easier way to consume a story. So, with the help of human artists, which is another beautiful thing about this, is you get to work with other humans. That's a whole different story that we've been over 100 times with AI. But that's another beautiful part about it, is I can literally depend on Gabriel, Lucas Jensen with Refuge, Roy Schroyer with an unnamed series that we're working on right now, which I'm very excited about, and hopefully will be announced or shown off soon. I can rely on these individuals and have conversations and interact with them in a way to where I'm almost using them as my mind's eye. They're helping me visualize this story that I have in my head, which is just a ton of fun and a huge joy to do. Now, I don't know how much of this was applicable or relatable to anyone out there or any of our watchers. I still really appreciate you guys watching as normal. Thank you for sticking with us and supporting us by buying some of our books. I hope that we will have more and more to come as we grow this publishing house, and that we bring you banger after banger after banger of really solid stories that aren't being told anywhere else. Along with some pretty cool other things that we're working on in the background that will be teased on our website very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Maybe next time you go to check out, maybe Ash will be on the website pretty soon. You can go pick up a copy of that. And while you're browsing our website, feel free to look at some of the coming soon pages that we'll have up very soon to give you a teaser at some of the cool things that we're working on behind the scenes at BentBox. Now, if you suffer, if you feel the suffering that I'm going through on a day-to-day basis of not being able to see the apple, Comment below. Let me know if you have aphantasia. If you don't have aphantasia and you're like, wait, people can't see things? Comment that below. Just let's start a discussion. It's kind of cool. It's one of those things where I thought I was normal. I feel like everyone, unless you're really not normal, I feel like everyone, and you know, that's cool. Good for you. Normal typically is boring, but I thought I was normal. I didn't think anyone could see things in their head. And then the second I found out someone could just visualize an apple on command, like a, you know, some kind of black magic, I was like, what are you talking about? So it's kind of interesting to find out that you can do things that I can't do. And then you find out about people don't have a mental, a voice, an inner voice that they can like say I'm just hanging out or I'm doing a chore, I'm doing the dishes or something like that. And mentally, 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing the dishes, I'm mentally thinking about a story I'm writing or anything like that. And I'm actually like planning dialogue in my head, which is kind of fun. There are people out there who can't do that, which seems almost worse. I think my daughter's that. She just talks out loud every time she's doing anything. Any inner thought tends to be an outer thought, which is just kind of funny. So maybe she has that. I don't know. But yeah, so if you're like me, comment below. If you're not like me, comment below. If you don't care about any of this, comment below. If you do care about this, comment below. Whatever helps the algorithm, whatever, you know, helps the engagement. And plus, it's just really fun to hear from you guys. And once again, I really appreciate everything you guys do and the support. So once again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us on another Friday. Tomorrow is SiestaCon in Sarasota, Florida. So if you're in the area, come hang out. We'll have Jeff Morris with True Believer. He'll be signing copies. Fresh Prince. Well, not Fresh Prince. Fresh Prince. I understand. That was confusing. We have Ash by Dan Loeb will be there physically. Just a book, not him. I am doing terrible right now. And Worlds Forgotten 2 by John Shell, which recently got finished and put online for free on Global Comics, which is awesome. And it's a really fun continuation of this adventure. Will also be there physically. So the comic, not John. Anyway, I have more problems than one. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. If not, I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one, guys.